I'm Jeff Provine, and I love a spooky story. I've been researching folklore and haunted sites for over a decade, and I believe, if you listen closely enough, there are great stories everywhere. Let's see what we can find while we're visiting haunts. Oklahoma City, they call it the modern frontier, which the city is only about 130 years old. But even within that time, we've had a whole change of different chapters in history. Today we're going to take a look at Film Row, one of the only surviving film exchanges in all the nation, as well as a 1903 mansion built by Henry Overholser, one of the city founders. Let's go take a look. Hello, hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, good to see you.
I am always blown away whenever I walk into the mansion. My eyes just can't stop looking in every direction at once.
It's quite a place, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, glad to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for letting me come in, and I guess let's take a tour.
All righty. This is basically the side door. You came through the right door, but the one I'm getting ready to show you is just a little bit more impressive. If you'll follow me.
All right.
You see what I mean now?
Yeah, not too shabby.
So this is around the corner from where you came in, and the mansion was built in 1903. So for Oklahoma, that's before statehood. We have all 3 floors open for our guests. The first floor is the most ornate and the most opulent, as you can see. This has never been restored. You're looking at these rooms the way the family did. This is original walls and ceilings. These are all hand stenciled and hand painted, and it took them 2 years.
2 years. Not bad. So who would have been invited to come in and see this first floor?
Any of the first families of Oklahoma City. If you're here visiting in town, it would have been, take for instance the street names that you see when you're visiting here in Oklahoma City. All those families were entertained in this house at one time or another. The last time anybody lived in this house was back in 1959, and that was the year the only daughter of Henry and Anna Overholser. She passed away of cancer at the age of 53. She and her husband, David J. Perry, never had any children. So this house has never had any descendants after them. Luckily for us, her husband, David J. Perry, who lived until 1991, saw the significance in the house and conveyed it to the Oklahoma Historical Society. They still own it today. The house is managed by Preservation Oklahoma, but David J. Perry left all the contents along with it. So their clothes are still in the closets, books are still on the shelf. This was the showplace of Oklahoma City. Henry and Anna were known for their lavish lifestyle and lavish parties. So you can imagine the kind of functions that took place in this
Come
house.
Check out the electric lighting at the minimum.
And can't you imagine Mrs. Overholser making her grand entrance?
Oh, there you go.
Coming down those stairs.
Walking down. Oh, you happened to drop by.
Yes.
Because there's no cell phones to alert you.
No cell phones, no texting, anything like that.
Great. So everybody at the parties would come out and hang out here. Who would get to go upstairs? Probably
family and close family members. The children would have been most likely sent to the 3rd floor because that's where the nanny resided. And the whole house is 12,000 square feet. The 3rd floor alone is over 3,000 square feet, so there'd be plenty of room for the children to play. This side of the hallway, I call it the ladies' side. But the ladies would be in these 2 rooms, the music room and the front parlor. Gentlemen would be across the hall in what we call the smoking room.
Oh, cool. Let's go see what they would see.
Okay. So this is what I call the original man cave. This is a smoking room, but you can see definitely the contrast from across the hallway where the ladies would visit. This furniture is very ornate, hand-carved mahogany tables. The dragon chairs are carved of rosewood. Even the bookcase still holds the family Bible. But Henry Overholser purchased this furniture in Chicago back in 1893 at the Columbian Exposition. And if you read about that, that is the it was like the World's Fair. That's when Tesla and Edison were kind of challenging each other on the newest technology of the day, electricity. Upstairs we have the bench that matches the dragon chairs. It was probably replaced by that more comfortable 50s looking sofa because it does not look very comfortable. We'll see it on the 3rd floor, but it was at one time in this room. So this is the dining room, and if we could listen, if these walls could talk, because of all the parties that took place here,
So with so much history and old energy built into this place that's never been overridden or anything, I'm sure you've got plenty of ghost stories.
I sure do. You want to hear one?
I want to hear them all.
Well, we've had paranormal groups come in here, but for me, a couple of times in between tours, I have heard our dinner chime ring. And I thought it was a doorbell, but our doorbell has not worked in years. Several times I've come in the house in the morning and I will smell pancakes and syrup, which is a really great smell.
Yeah, where do you get that ghost?
From coming from the kitchen, which is behind this room, and you walk in and you smell pancakes and syrup. And I gave a tour to two ladies who are my first tour of the day, and they came through the door and the first thing they said was like, "Oh, who's cooking? I smell pancakes and syrup." And I was like, "Well, we'll go to the kitchen later and see." And of course, after a minute or two, it's just gone. It's completely gone. We've heard glasses clinking in here, a lot of things in the kitchen, because that's where Geneva the cook spent much of the day, when she lived here. They lived over next door in the carriage house. You'll smell roses throughout the house, random places, cigars or tobacco of some kind in the smoking room. And but roses is kind of a frequent smell. We attribute it to be Mrs. Overholser because that was her favorite flower. But those little signs that still linger. They still linger. So, and I don't blame them because it's a beautiful home.
Yeah. So sounds and smells, people could argue, well, those are bleeding back through or just happens to be a micro earthquake or something. Is there anything irrefutable that you would?
We've had many people, and I say many because I've lost count, of persons driving by, neighbors, Oklahoma City residents, even OKC PD stopped by and asked if there was somebody in the tower last night. They've seen people, a woman usually.
A woman, okay.
With the Gibson girl hairdo. Security has reported seeing a woman in the window of the sitting room over many, many times over the years.
Oh, wow.
Curtains opening and shutting on the second floor and third floor. We have 109 windows, so, but it's always on the second floor or third floor tower, sitting room. We don't have a resident here that sports a Gibson girl hairdo, except for Mrs. Overholser.
Except for Mrs. Overholser. Wow, can we see those windows?
Yeah, absolutely. The windows are magnificent in the house.
So which of the windows would Mrs. Overholser be looking out?
So this is the window that she's been reported being seen and just merely looking out the window. This is her sitting room, one of her favorite spots. This is a room where she would have gone over the menus and maybe activities that would take place at the home, when she lived here, because she was known for her entertaining and women's organizations meeting here. So this was the room where, almost like her office. But this is a window that we've had security report to us over the years of a lady being seen in that window.
Which I also like that it's the only one without the shade drawn.
Right, and also she would have had a great vantage point on any of these windows on the south side of the home to oversee or overlook the fledgling Oklahoma City.
As it's growing gradually out this way, and then of course, ultimately 100 miles that direction.
Absolutely, and we have to remember there were no trees of any kind. And back in 1903, this was just the highest point north of downtown Oklahoma City. So it really did have a really good vantage point from this room.
Great. Can we check out the second window you said?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So this is the tower landing.
Wow.
And this is actually kind of like a little stage, you see? And the society papers would say that Mrs. Overholser had a luncheon, and on the second floor landing played a music trio, hidden behind a bank of palms. You know, like you do at home.
Yeah. All the time. Just we have, you know, an iPod player from back then in the day.
But this is our tower windows. And as you can see, we can still see downtown Oklahoma City from here.
Oh, wow.
Henry Overholser's property would have been where the Devon Tower now stands today in the Cole Court Hotel, so directly south.
There you go. Just keeping an eye on them, seeing who's coming home for dinner.
Yep.
So we have glasses clinking on the first floor and people peeping out the window on the second floor. What's going on the third floor?
A lot is going on the third floor. It's a completely different part of the house, and you will see it is very open, and it's still one of the largest rooms in the house and the most active.
Well, I want to check it out.
All right.
So most people have a kids' table for parties. Instead we have the kids' floor.
Kids' floor. You can see what I mean, how open this is?
Yeah, I mean, I'd come play here. And so now we have activity. What kind of things going on?
We have lots of activity up here. This is most active part of the house. Part of my theory is because we have donations of toys and dolls and other things, bonnets, baby bonnets. Those are donated by many people over the years, and a lot of them do not have like a background. So there's a lot of children activity here. We've put jacks, those jacks that you play with. We've placed them in the old nursery. Lights going off and on in the nanny's room in the corner. And we have 19 closets in the house, and 11 of those are here on the third floor. This closet has a lot of activity.
Oh, what happens over there?
You can hear like things rattling inside or moving in the closet.
Okay,
and
nothing so far. If it did, I'd be over there. So.
It happens almost every year around Halloween.
Halloween?
But I've also, at one time, opened the closet behind our case there, and I heard what sounded like a cat, like when a cat's trying to get traction, and there wasn't, we don't have a cat.
Yeah.
That was in that closet. Lights off and on in the old nursery area. That's also where we have a lot of trunks and a couple of more items that belonged to Henry I owned when she was a child. Date all the way back to 1905.
So a lot of potential for attachment on hanging out with the other kids.
And even our paranormal teams have picked up EVPs of children's voices.
Just having a party.
Still here.
Yeah, good times.
Good place to play.
Yeah. So the legend I've always heard was that somebody's keeping an eye on them, the old nanny's room.
The old nanny's room, and it's very generous, spacious quarters for a nanny, because it is bigger than a living room and a dining room put together, but this is where the nanny would have lived.
Well, just personal ghost story. I don't know if you remember this, but I vividly remember it. When I was first putting together the Haunted Oklahoma City book, you generously allowed me to do a walk through the house while you were locking up, and it was after the last tour and it was all quiet and everything, so I walked through and spooked myself a little bit, but it was all, nothing's here. But as I came up to here, I was heading toward this area, which I had just been reading about one of the paranormal investigation teams that had all this activity, and a guy's iPad got thrown across the room and stuff, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna check it out. And as I crossed the room, temperature dropped, just ice cold. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. So I thought, okay, I'm just spooking myself again, but I don't really need to be here. So took off. And then as I was saying goodbye, you asked, oh, did anything happen? And I said, well, I scared myself when the air conditioner came on up on the third floor. And you said, well, no, I turned the air conditioner off after the tour. It's not on. And there you go.
It's very active.
Yep. Somebody's up here keeping an eye on things.
And it is, I've smelled roses up here before. There's more activity in the other part of the third floor if you want to see.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Yeah, this is where the tower room is. What do you think?
It's pretty spooky. It's what you would call a tower room.
This is the tower room, and you can see where they would love to overlook their downtown Oklahoma City buildings back in the day when this was outside the city limits. And this is where they seen Mrs. Overholser, and here in the tower room, different hours of the night. And I can see why.
Yeah, it's a good view even today.
Very good view.
Any of the paranormal investigation teams ever tried to do a seance right here?
We've done a EVP in this room, and it was quite late, and it was in January when we're closed. And I was in here with one of the investigators. The others were in the next building, so we were the only two in here. And we just did a silent EVP, just running the recorder. And we heard what sounded like somebody whistling, and there's those whistlers that can...
Got some great thunder going on.
Yeah, right in the middle of a storm. I heard somebody whistling, and it was the kind of person that can really whistle a tune, unlike myself, but that I cannot whistle. And it was, the song was Greensleeves. And we caught it on tape, but it was in this room, and nobody else was on this floor.
So, like you were saying, she's very musical. Well, thanks once again for having us come see the house and all of its glory. How can other people come and check it out?
We always do our nighttime tours starting in late September, October, ending pretty close to Halloween. And you can learn more about our tours and daytime tours on our website, overholsermansion.org.
Great. And thank you, Mrs. Overholser, if you're listening, for being such a great hostess. And if we get an EVP on that, don't let me know. For our next stop, we traveled several blocks south of the Overholser Mansion to the historic Film Road district. The Paramount building is one of the last surviving film exchange buildings where theater owners would come to preview the films they wanted to screen. All right, hey, thanks for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so what's your connection with the building? How long?
So I'm actually the executive director of Rodeo Cinema Foundation, and we have two historic locations, one being in the stockyards and then the other being here inside the Paramount building located in Film Row.
Very cool. So what's the history of this theater here?
So this screening is actually a screening room. A long time ago, there was what was called the Film Row Exchange, and essentially that was MGM, Paramount, which is the Paramount building. They stored their film in buildings, in the Midwest, the North, and the South, and all over. And when people would schedule a movie, unlike now's modern day age, you would actually have to come in and see the movie at a screening room, decide if you wanted it. They'd load the film reel up on the train and ship it out all across. So this is actually, as we know of, the last remaining screening room from the Film Row Exchange.
Wow.
Yeah, and the building was, they estimate about 1930, but nobody actually has the precise date that the building was made.
Oh, wow. So just a little bit of mystery.
A lot of mystery.
Yeah, yeah. So technology's progressed and we don't have to have the big shipping containers anymore. So what happened to this building?
So this building actually is one of the only buildings from that era that was really preserved. So it's been kind of overhauled, and now you can find a variety of different businesses located inside of it. And we are really the last link to the history of the Film Row, being a movie theater inside the building where you can find a winery and a brewery and all these different things. But yeah, we're kind of the last piece of that.
Very cool. So with all the history behind it, I always ask, is there anything spooky attached?
So there's definitely a lot of stories. There's a couple of funny things. So the basement is very interesting. It has a vault door on it with like an actual vault handle. I was told that they did that because the nitrate from the film was highly explosive and flammable. And so all the film would go into the basement and then lock it up in case it caught fire. But the really fascinating thing about the basement is there is a stairway that leads to nowhere. It's an interesting little tidbit, but it's definitely got a feeling to it when you walk in. It definitely has a history, and I know one thing that we've experienced on multiple occasions is our alarm system loves to be triggered at the wee hours of the morning, usually between 3 to 6 o'clock, and yet whenever anybody arrives, there's nobody to be found. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, something about 3 o'clock. They say gets the energy
Witching
going.
hour, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's annoying for me.
That's true. Do you have any idea who might be doing it?
I don't know who might be doing it, but it's definitely not a person, I suspect. But yeah, the building has a very interesting history. I've heard, and I don't know, I can't validate how much truth is in this, but that there was a fire in the building early on when they very first started, because there was mostly this building was secretaries and, you know, all the floors were kind of offices and accounting and things like that. But there was a fire that happened, and it was actually on the first floor, and someone was badly injured. I don't know if they survived or not, but rumor has it every now and again you can smell smoke, and yeah.
So at least enough emotional impact of that moment to kind of get an impression on reality, and things just like to replay themselves, just like movies.
Exactly. There's definitely a lot of orb activity. So if you take a camera and shoot a couple of places, you'll usually see a little orb ball in there. And so yeah, there's some fun, unique stuff to the building for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's such an exciting history. You know, it makes sense that energy would stick around and want to keep the thing going.
Yeah, I hope they like the movies we're selecting. I mean, it does seem like there's been a lot of equipment issues lately, so I'm kind of wondering if they're not fans of contemporary cinema, but...
Wow. We'll find something they like.
Yeah. We just need to go back to, like, Fright Night or something like that, a ghost story, just keep it good.
So if people want to come check out a show, where can they find some more information?
Actually, rodeocinema.org is a great place to find that information, and if you also Google Rodeo on Film Row, showtimes pop up.
Perfect.
After hearing the stories about the basement, we were curious to see this bit of history for ourselves. Kara was kind enough to give us a tour, and I was shocked to see how much of the basement was still original.
So you have 3-inch thick steel doors so that if a fire ever got down into where all the film is, it would prevent it from just blowing up the entire city. Oh, and it's still set on the original chains. So the door is now propped open, but when the whole chain system went, it couldn't stay open. It had to be shut. And then your foot-thick concrete.
Yeah.
And now we just have little discs. Or just, sent over the internet.
They recently just cleared them out, but the reels, I mean, they were massive. Most people, I think, imagine them as, but they were huge.
Huge. You have to swap them out.
You have to swap
Get the
them
cigarette
out,
burns on the film.
They would put them onto smaller reels to play them, and then somebody be in there splicing them together and to make the whole thing work. Yeah.
People were dedicated. I mean,
A lost art.
everything for entertainment.
Yeah.
For a final stop, we visited with one of the owners of Core 4 Brewing about their spooky experiences in the Paramount building.
Hey, thanks for having us out.
Man, thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so tell us about Core 4.
Well, we started this process in about 2018. We started with my business partner, Marty Simon, and his wife, Amy, as we were home brewing at their house. Marty was a home brewer for quite a few years, 10, 15 years, and we played in a band together. And so we always had practice at Marty's house because, he had the beer, right?
There you go.
So it just we became the guinea pigs for his homebrew, and he was making like such amazing beer. And so from that point, we started throwing it in the band van and taking it to gigs and letting everybody else try it out. And the next thing you know, here we are, man. We signed the lease on this the Paramount building in 2018, and we started with build out. And we opened in the greatest time that you could open a small business, March 14th of 2020.
Yep. So how'd that work out?
Yeah, it was amazing. Let me tell you, start a small business right at the beginning of a pandemic is the greatest thing you could ever do as a business owner.
Yeah. But it turned out all right.
But it did turn around. But I tell you what happened is we had we got in a really amazing team, and so everything we built here, we really had to flip the script. We had to think outside the box. We weren't allowed to have anybody in. We weren't set up for distribution. So we were selling 32-ounce glass growlers out of a window to anybody that would walk by. But luckily, we got a really good craft beer community here, and they supported us through and through, and we sold a lot of beer out that window for about 3 or 4 months before they let us open back up. So we ended up working out pretty good, man. But we had to change on the fly, do some things we were not expecting.
So in your years here at the Paramount, what kind of spooky stories have you run across?
Well, you know, this building was built in the, what was it, the late 1920s, so it's been here for nearly 100 years.
Oh, wow.
There's quite a few stories that take place in this building in general. I've had quite a few things happen to me all over the building.
Oh, wow.
But in this scenario, we'll talk about Core 4 itself. So when we first started moving in here, the people that had this place before us was a t-shirt company. And we didn't have any idea, we didn't know any of the history, like this kind of history, right? Other than the real history of the building and the movies and all that stuff. So they came in and had a talk with us, and they had asked us if anything had occurred. And we're like, not yet, you know, we're really just kind of starting. We haven't really been in here a lot, you know. So they were telling me when they first moved in that they were ripping off a bunch of sheetrock off of the walls. And as they were ripping off the sheetrock on one wall, it was just splattered with blood, just blood splattered all over this wall as they're pulling the sheetrock off. And they're like tripping out, right? Like, oh my God, like what do we do?
Pausing for a moment to add a correction. As we researched this incident, we learned it was actually the photography studio, which was there before the apparel company, that discovered the blood. Now back to it.
So immediately they call the police department, you know, police department comes in, they scrape the wall, they run DNA sample on it, it's too old, they can't get anything off of it. They're basically, all we can do is clean it up and paint over it, it's done. But they said they always had things happen to them all the time. And they would hear a woman whisper in their ears. And just they'd be sitting there by themselves and a woman would whisper in their ear. And it was always a lady and she would only talk to the guys. Like none of the girls would ever hear or see anything. And I thought, you know, that was kind of interesting. So fast forward a little bit later, we're actually doing some build out in here. And I'm in the middle room and my business partner, Marty, he's in the back room and we're digging out, we've cut concrete and we're digging out holes to lay the plumbing. And we're getting everything put together. And like I'm wore out from digging these big old trenches for the plumbing and I'm sit down to take a break. And I start hearing this lady go, hello, hello. And I start looking around, I'm like, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. And immediately Marty walks in, he's like, what's up, man? Did you hear that? Because I didn't hear anything. And I just kind of shut my mouth. Like I was like, I don't know. Because at the time, like these kind of, you know, the tap room area, there's people who walk in and out, you know, the dance studios behind here, and maybe they go their car in and out. And I was like, well, maybe, you know, then you start having thoughts and it was kind of trippy, you know, and I was like, it's just one of those things that maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't, you know?
Cool. So what else?
So then we just started, we always talk about our ghost. We named her Gladys.
Gladys.
Yeah, that was her name, Gladys. So we always had Gladys, so something went wrong. We were like, oh, Gladys, I'm sorry. You know, we say goodnight to her every night, you know, we shut everything down. And I know like Marty has had some things happen, like while he's here alone brewing, and then like a broom just flies off the wall. And then he's like, oh my God, like, what's that? And he has to walk in there and he looks around, has to put the broom, and you know, they're latched in to little things on the wall. So like, they're not just gonna fly off the wall, right? Like
at most gonna fall down.
Fall straight down, not out, right? Yeah. So we've had a lot of little things like that happen. I did have a medium come in one time and kind of go through the brew house and the tap room and kind of get a vibe of what she felt. And she felt her, and she's the one that told me her name is actually Katie.
Katie.
Yep.
Okay.
And so we've been calling her Gladys all this time just because we thought that was a really cool 1930s, you know, lady's name. And we come to find out her name's Katie. So we think we have her real name now. So when we talk to her and we tell her good night, you know, we call her Katie. And so she doesn't seem to bother us too much. She seems to be a pretty nice entity.
Yeah, especially now that you got her name right.
Right. Yeah. She's mad at us because we were calling her the wrong name at first, but. So that's kind of some cool stories that, you know, that we've had happen right here in the tap room.
Awesome. So great. Well, thanks so much for having us out once again. And what's a good way for people to find out more about Core 4?
Well, you can follow us at Core 4 Brewing. Use the numeral 4 at Core 4 Brewing on all your social medias, from your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, your TikTok, all the things, man. Just Core 4 Brewing. My name is Buck. Just holler at me. Appreciate you guys.
Before we left, Buck showed us the exact spots where these experiences happened in their brewery.
So welcome to Murder Wall. This was the wall that I was talking about, where they tore everything off the wall, found the large blood stains. And this is where I sat down, and when I heard the whispers in my ear. And then Marty was in the back brew house, and you used to be able to come down this hallway here to get in here before we blocked it all off, and he came through this door. And I was like, you didn't hear that? He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So yeah, pretty spooky moment. So here's like kind of our storage area. So like the brooms would be, it's kind of a mess back here, but it would just be sitting in there like that. And then he would come in and this broom would be over here. Like, why is it gonna fly that far, you know? It's not going to.
Knocking it down, saying, clean up the place, guys.
Right? You're leaving my place a mess. But the spookiest story I have in the basement, like it still gives me chills. So the paranormal team shot these laser lights into a corner, and they're just like 1,000 little green dots, just green dots. And then you stand on the back side of that so you know it's not you, and it's to catch shadows that are coming through. And so they were doing their call and response and talking, and we watched the whole shadow walk through that laser light. Like, whoa. Yeah, it was creepy. Like, yeah, the basement's really creepy. Like, it's probably the basement, and believe it or not, the ladies' bathroom on the 3rd floor are the 2 creepiest places I've ever been in this place. Don't ask me why I was in the ladies' bathroom on the 3rd floor, but it's super creepy.
Just leave it at that.
I was with the ladies on the office ladies up there were always telling me they get weird feelings. And so we kind of had this funny like Harry Potter like joke going on about the ladies' bathroom, you know. And so when I brought the paranormal team in, I was like, you know, they're always telling me the creepy feelings they get in the ladies' bathroom. So you guys should like put some stuff in there and do something. And yeah, everything was flashing and going off, and like it was like they got a lot of readings. Like I didn't feel anything or see anything other than they were just all their little
super active.
Yeah, super active.
Yeah. Which, when you look at the kind of spooky, real life, scary history of Skid Row before everything came back, who knows who might be spooking around up there?
Right. I've told you that's kind of my feeling about this place. Like, I don't feel these are, I don't know what you would call them, ghosts from the 1920s, 30s, 40s film era. I feel that they're probably from the 70s and 80s when this was Skid Row. And a lot of bad things were happening down here, and a lot of drug deals went bad, and a lot of people probably got killed over bad drug deals or prostitution or whatever. So those spirits died a horrible death. They still have a lot of things left to complete that they didn't complete, so they're still kind of lingering, you know? So that's kind of my theory on it, more than we like to get into the hoopla of the elegance of the 20s and 30s and the movie and the Hollywood and how this is Film Row. But we forget at one time this was Skid Row.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to get the whole history,
right?
You know?
It's not as glorious as the movie stars watching
Flitting
film
around.
or whatever. But, you know, they say that if you die a bad death is when you hang around. So there was probably a lot of bad deaths in this area at that time.
But at least it's a lot nicer now, so...
It's a lot nicer now. There's a lot of cool businesses here. This place is completely revamped. It's very historical. Film Row is a really fun place to be.
Preserve the places where Oklahoma history lives. Find out how you can help at preservationok.org.